Well, a very good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be watching in the world. A warm welcome to beautiful, sunny Lisbon, the Portuguese capital, as EWTN begins its coverage of World Youth Day 2023. What a privilege it is to be here with you. My name is Colin Flynn. I am joined here by Father Mark Mary Christina, and I've got Eleanora Vescovini with me as well from POP in Italy. We're going to say more to them in a moment and talk to them, but just to remind you, for the next 30 minutes or so, we'll be here with you live, building up to the opening Mass. Outside, there are hundreds of thousands of young people gathering. Father Mark, it's quite a sight to see, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel like I'm at World Youth Day now. You see this beautiful crowd. We're at Edward VII Park. It goes down to the Teju River, which goes into the Atlantic. But the kids are here, the young people are here. You see all the flags. They're even strewn on the sides with all the trees. It's like a scene out of Galilee, I think. You know?
And Father Mark, people will know you from shows on EWTN like Life on the Rock and the Daily Mass that you celebrate. You're with the Franciscan Missionaries of the Eternal World, and this isn't your first World Youth Day.
No. I attended Toronto in 2002 as a chaperone. And then I've been to 7 others with coverage, covering it.
This is fantastic. And by the way, for people watching, if you're noticing the loud music in the background, before the Mass here for the last hour or so, they've had various bands and singers and performers from Portugal and from different parts of the world who have been performing for the Pilgrims, as they have been streaming into Eduardo Park from left, right and centre. So the atmosphere is really beautiful, all building up to the opening Mass, taking place in around 30 minutes. And just to remind you as well that if you want to learn more about EWTN's coverage, you can go to EWTN.com/WYD. That stands for World Youth Day, and you'll get all the information there about what we are doing. Eleanora, you haven't been to as many World Youth Days as Father Mark, but this is your second one, isn't that right?
Yeah, exactly. I went in Krakow in 2016. It was an amazing experience, but I'm so happy to be here, actually for the second time in Lisbon, because I went here like 4 years ago, but only on vacation, and so I'm so glad.
And it's an amazing perspective you have, because the first World Youth Day in Poland, you were a volunteer.
Yeah, exactly.
And now you're back, you're working again. So you're seeing this from another unique perspective as a journalist.
Yeah, actually, you're right, Colm. In the previous one in Krakow, I was a volunteer in the communication department. My university created a team of students, and we went to Krakow. And we helped the communication department, and it was so important to do that, because for a student it's important, in my opinion, to pass from the theory to the practice.
Yes.
Okay, and so...
And our viewers, of course, will recognize Father Mark from television, as I said. They may not recognize you, Eleanora, but they might recognize some of your work, because you were in charge of ChurchPOP Italiana. And tell me a bit about ChurchPOP and what it is you do.
Yeah, I'm the editor of ChurchPOP Italiano, but there are other 3 languages, and they are Spanish, Portuguese, and English, of course.
And ChurchPOP is part of the EWTN family for younger audience.
Exactly, it's a service of EWTN News, and yeah, we create every day new content. And we will publish them on the website first, and after that on social media, especially on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
And we'll talk more about that in a moment, how to engage the young people on the platforms where they are, going to where they are. Father Mark, have you ever been on ChurchPOP?
Oh, yes. I've been the English version, but yeah, we've interviewed some of the people involved with that over the years.
To give people an idea, because it's so hard to get it across on television, even though we have EWTN has cameras all over the park and all over Lisbon, just what the atmosphere has been like today. Tell me a bit about the young people you've encountered so far in the last day or so.
Yes, we were at the Church of St. Anthony, where he was born. They made a beautiful church there. I met a number of the pilgrims there, and had some wonderful conversations, met some Americans, we met a few bishops. You know, they're out. That's always great to see the bishops with their flock and being a shepherd to them. And I just enjoy the conversations. And, you know, there's a spirit of joy. And I always say, like World Youth Day, I think it gets the attention of the secular world because, you know, to see young people come together peacefully, celebration, joy. There's not these major problems going on or anything like that. I think it gets the world's attention.
That's a great point because you could liken it when you look at the crowd to like a football festival in terms of the flags and the colors. Everyone's bringing the flags of their country and their jerseys, but the atmosphere is so beautiful and caring and loving. Everyone is here to see Pope Francis. Everyone's here to celebrate Mass. Everyone's here for that unity with other Catholics.
Yeah, and they want to talk with, engage one another. You know, they're just wide open, like, you know, soaking it all in. And it's a wonderful presence. To me, I think as a Catholic, you come to an event like this, one of the big fruits is you realize you're not alone.
Yes.
There's a great communion of believers, a communion of things that we hold true, belief in Jesus Christ, you know, wanting to serve Him. That's a different kind of crowd than you're used to.
And actually, you're going to hear someone echo those comments now, a young lady from Korea, part of just some of the so many young people who said to us, this shows you that the church is not just for older people, it's full of young people as well, because yesterday we went around with the EWTN cameras, and let me tell you, this is just a few of the so many young people that we met.
I come from Côte d'Ivoire.
Jersey, Congo, Kinshasa. I come from Côte d'Ivoire.
From Togo, GMG is good. Portugal is very good.
Lisbon is very good.
Very good. Oh, I am very happy.
Italy! Yes! Beautiful. Why did you come here for World Youth Day?
Okay, we have come here, everyone for its own reason, but as a group, to be together, to meet people from all around the world.
When did you get here?
This morning.
Oh, how are you feeling?
A little bit tired, but we just finished adoration and it was such a joyful time.
Your first time in Lisbon?
Yes.
Yes. What do you think so far?
It's been awesome. Friendly people and great vibes.
I think to experience the universality of the church. I think to meet many different people from all walks of life.
World Youth Day is like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to encounter the Pope.
Patron saint of the World Youth Days, who comes from our parish, Marcel Callot. And so we just want to share with everyone and make everyone around the world discover this saint.
Viva France! Thank you guys! What are you looking forward to the most? What are you in particular excited about?
I'm excited about getting in contact with Jesus and living the journey.
Living the dream.
Yes.
To find fraternity and to find God also, and meet with Pope.
And meet with another sisters.
USA! USA!
It's super important for us to be part of this big event, to be with the youth.
Just being able to see Pope Francis, that is one of the things that I'm super excited about.
The youth came together and we can see the power of the youth, and like we can feel churches is not that old. We are young, still young, yeah.
God bless Africa. God bless Africa. God bless the Papa. God bless the
Africa. Oh, that is just fantastic. Some of the young people that we met yesterday on the streets around Lisbon. And what was so great to see there, we had Asia, North America, Latin America, Europe. The global church is on show here at the moment, isn't it, Father Mark?
It is, yes. And it's such a beautiful setting as well. I mean, I've been impressed by the beauty of Lisbon. You know, you're in the Atlantic, and it's a great shipping port. It's one of the economic centers of Europe and one of the largest shipping ports in the world. It's great history.
One of the oldest cities in Europe as well, with a great Christian history under the Roman Empire. It goes way back.
Right. I was reading that the Phoenicians were actually here like in 1200 BC.
Wow, it's just amazing.
So, yeah.
I mean, when Americans come here especially and they just see the history, they're blown away, aren't they?
Yeah.
And you know what was interesting when we were watching that on the monitor? The young people from Africa, the church just booming in Africa.
It is. It's it's the future population source of the world. That in Southeast Asia. You know, I read a stat that you looked at the 5 largest populations of practicing Catholics, like regular Sunday Mass attendance. I think 3 of the 5 are African nations.
Wow, that just shows you. And we were discussing this earlier. Before the Holy Father went to South Sudan, we went for EWTN News in Depth, and we did a report. And one of the priests that I interviewed, he made a really interesting point. He said, Colm, in the Northern Hemisphere, they can't get enough young people to come to church. It's mainly older people. Right. But in the Southern Hemisphere, here in Africa, we've the opposite problem. We've too many young people and not enough older people coming. Isn't it incredible just how that you see that shift?
And you know, I remember one time being in St. Peter's Square. It was a celebration for the Year for Priests, the closing of that. And Pope Benedict was driving through the crowd in the Pope Mobile. And when he saw these group of African priests, his face just lit up. You know, it's a real sign of hope. And you know, they bring their own joy. You can see them especially dancing or music. I remember in Cologne, they were doing like a Congo line, is that what you call that, on the boat? They just had like 2 sticks and they were beating out a beat on a table.
Wow,
you know,
it's that rhythm. It's great.
Yeah.
And we saw some people from your home country as well. Eleanora there from beautiful Italy. Your job is to engage the youth, primarily in Italy. How do you find that nowadays, trying to engage a young audience and keep the faith alive on social media when it's often not very receptive to the faith?
Yeah, it's important, in fact, to create a connection between youth and the church. And I think that events like that can encourage youth people to be closer to the Catholic Church. And on the other hand, in 2023, it's important also to be present on social media.
Yeah, you have to be where the audience is. So if the young people are there, that's where you have to be.
Yeah.
And EWTN is putting a lot of resources now into social media, across news and ChurchPOP and so on. How do you find the engagement? Is it getting better? Is it increasing?
Yeah, it's growing. It's growing. ChurchPOP Italiano is the little one of the 4. But we are growing, so I'm so happy. I love my job, so...
Father Mark, every World Youth Day has a theme, and this year it is Mary arose and went with haste. Can you tell us a bit about the theme and why you think it was chosen for this year?
Right, it's been a theme of Pope Francis about arising. You know, he loves that theme of getting up. You know, he wants us to go out, to the peripheries, go out to meet people. Yeah, and this passage from Luke's Gospel, I love the Marian theme. Panama also had a Marian theme, let it be done to me according to thy word. He's continuing that here with the visitation, that this arising, that we are to get up, to wake up, get out of our slumber, get out of our self-focus, our own worries, fears, and concerns. I mean, Mary did that. She's pregnant. And it's a tough journey down to Jerusalem. That's like 90 miles and a big change of elevation. And so she went with haste, some urgency, some desire.
And that's something that a lot of the young pilgrims were faced with over the last couple of months. They were thinking, do I have enough money to go, or will there be enough accommodation? But then eventually they had to take that motto on board and say, look, I should just go and take that leap of faith and go to World Youth Day.
Right, and World Youth Day, it has definitely got its own chaos. And Americans, we like to be in control and have everything prepared and all that kind of stuff. But World Youth Day is going to turn that upside down, and you wind up getting help from others. Relying more on God's providence, and it's an image of what we're supposed to be doing in life. Right?
Well, you know what? Pope Francis put out the call, and the young people certainly answered, and now I think we're going to meet some of them live as we cross to Brother John Teresa. Brother John Teresa, where are you, and who are you with?
We're out in the field here at World Youth Day, and it is a spectacular event to see all the people here, all the nations that are represented in all their flags. And it's so amazing to be out here, and we have a great group here from the Mariana Islands that have traveled a long way to come here. And tell us what your names are.
I'm Filma Benaflor, and with me I have
Aaron Swazin.
And William Cano.
And is this your first World Youth Day?
it's our first World Youth Day.
And you were telling me, how many miles is it to get here?
So we embarked this journey from Marianas to Lisbon. We traveled 8,438 miles. So it took us like around 3 days to get here. So most of our group members left Monday, and we reached Lisbon on a Wednesday afternoon.
And that's quite the devotion and sacrifice to get out here. I know it's not easy to make that effort, but you've done it. And what's the experience been like so far for you?
It's really a great experience, not only for me, but as well as for the youth that we have in the group.
And what's it been like for you?
Well, it's been amazing. We've met a lot of people from around the world, and it's been a great learning experience for me, especially.
And William, how about you?
Well, I've had many firsts in this World Youth Day, met many people. All these events are tiresome, but they're extremely fun.
Awesome. And what do you hope to get out of the whole event altogether? What do you look forward to?
It's more of a spiritual nourishment and knowing the essence of being a Catholic. It's not just being spiritually devoted to the Lord, but as well as to be aware of the surroundings and aware of being merciful and friendly with all the people. And we don't just say we're Catholics, but we must do it. And as one of the chaperones, it's hard for me because I should walk the talk or to be a good role model to them, and it's not really easy.
Setting that example is so important. And what about you? What do you hope to get out of this event?
I think I hope to come out with a lot of new experiences and come out with new friends and bonds from people all around the world. But most especially, I hope to build my faith and learn more about Christ in general.
Awesome. And it is awesome to be out here. And throughout the week, we're going to do more interviews with all the people that have come out here and to share their experiences and their journey with you. And back to you, Calm.
Brother John Therese, thank you so much. So good to see everyone there in the field smiling as well. By the way, I wish you could be here with us if you're at home watching on television, because you'd feel the heat from the sun. It's burning us from the back, isn't it? It's great.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, I kudos to Brother John being out there in the trenches.
There's so many young people here, as we're saying. The estimated number is somewhere between 900,000, 1.1 or 2 million by the end of the week. Although we never know. In previous years, we've been very surprised, so we'll wait and see. But what is it, Father Mark, that the young people should leave here with a sense of, or leave here with a new sense of?
I think definitely the communion of the church, and I think the Holy Father, as I mentioned, he's had a Marian theme in Panama back in 2019. He's got a Marian theme now. I think the Marian present, we have the Fatima Shrine just like an hour away or something. And, he says in his reflection about this World Youth Day theme that, Mary has practically visited, there's no place on earth that she hasn't visited through these apparitions and things. But every time we pray the rosary together, we're experiencing Mary's comfort, care, her intercession for us. So I love the Marian themes because she is the model disciple. She's going in haste, so she's bringing the presence of Christ within her to her cousin Elizabeth. We as Christians are to do that with others. We have sanctifying grace. We've been baptized, confirmed, we received the Eucharist. We have a lot to bring just by our presence, paying attention to the other person, giving them some time. So those themes are very powerful in the life of a Christian.
And it's important to remind our viewers as well that even though you're seeing the kind of festival atmosphere at the moment with the crowds, yesterday even walking on the street, we passed a beautiful small church and there was sisters outside welcoming people in to pray. Not just people who are here for World Youth Day, just ordinary young people here in Portugal. And they were going inside, it was silence, there was candles, there was adoration, and people were kneeling there, some people in tears as well. So we have to remind people that, those quiet moments are happening all over the city, and that's what it's all about.
Right, and I'm sure a lot of these young people are going to go to Fatima. That's like this one of the major Marian shrines in the world, and a powerful presence of Our Lady there. We went to it's a Poor Clare convent where Jacinta was at. It was at one time it was an orphanage, And just before she died, at the age of 9, Mary appeared to her in this orphanage. So we went and saw the room where she was at. She's 9 years old. I mean, how can that not speak to young people?
Yeah.
She's generously offering up her sufferings to the Lord with incredible faith and courage. To have a young person of that kind of recent memory and quality, I think has a big impact on young people.
And Eleanora, as someone again who works with young people and engaging them, we know that young people, they love hearing from people their own age and seeing examples of role models who are like them. Teenagers are like, my mom and dad aren't cool, my uncle, but people who are a few years older, teenagers, people in their 20s, do you find that, like Carlo Acutis, that young people connect with other young people they see being fearless in the faith, standing up for the faith, defending it, and really living their faith?
Yeah, for example, you said Carla Cutis is a very great example to follow. So I think that people like him can really help the youth.
Role models.
Yeah.
It was like we went over to interview Harrison Butker, who is the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. They won the Super Bowl in America, and after the Olympics, this is like one of the biggest sporting events. But a strong Catholic who said before he took the winning kick, he said a quick prayer. And he thought a lot of the players might laugh at him for this. So many young Catholics admired that. Being fearless and being able to say it on television, this is what I did. So it's important that people show their faith and they're proud about their faith, young people.
Yeah, exactly. It's really, really important.
And I think, I was recently reading John Paul II's address in Toronto, and he said when he started World Youth Day, what he really wanted was young people to witness to other young people, that they are especially positioned and gifted to witness to their peers. So that's a major part of World Youth Day, is to send them out.
You mentioned Toronto. Your first one was Denver, Father, wasn't that it?
Toronto was the first
Toronto was your first one. But EWTN has been covering World Youth Days from around maybe 93, the early 90s?
Yes, sir. I think 93 was the first one, yeah.
And you've done 8.
Right.
8. Any moment that stands out to you as like, that was just such a... Every World Youth Day is different, with a different theme, a different feeling. But any one that sticks out in your mind?
Two moments. After we talked about it, I was thinking about in Australia, Pope Benedict, I think it was at the Vigil, he knelt before the Eucharist. So they had this wonderful procession in, and then the Pope knelt, and the stadium went silent in adoration. Can you imagine this crowd being silent in adoration? And there's something about being led by the Pope. I mean, he is the vicar of Christ. He's the shepherd there, and that was very powerful. And another one, this was kind of a funny moment in Toronto. You hike into where the closing mass is going to be. You're there for the vigil the night before, and it had been hot and everything, and it was always going to rain that night. But before John Paul II left the stage, he said, "Now don't go home, don't go home." And then I remember I just felt like the strength coming. No, we're not going to go home.
You were just about to leave and head for the hotel, and you said, "Uh-oh, I better stay."
Yeah.
That is great. Well, as we mentioned, loads of World Youth Days over the years, loads of memories. And actually, we're going to take a little trip down memory lane, if that's okay with you, because here's just a little montage, a few clips of what the coverage has been like on EWTN over the years.
Welcome back, everybody. We are very happy that you've stayed with us through this exciting and inspirational day here as EWTN brings you the live coverage of this magnificent World Youth Day in Denver.
Welcome to this 1997 World Youth Day special from Paris, France.
Welcome to EWTN News coverage of the opening ceremony of the 15th World Youth Day celebrations from Rome, part of our continuing coverage of the Great Jubilee Year 2000.
We are beginning our coverage of the 17th World Youth Day, and we want to welcome you to Exhibition Place. Hello, I'm Jeff Cavins, and it's good to have you with us.
Really, when the Holy Father arrives, that's what really kicks off the World Youth Day in its fullest. And It is very evangelical. You feel like he's just coming to preach the gospel to us. And he's coming to be the rock on which we can stand, on which the church can stand.
Hello and welcome to Day 2 of EWTN's live coverage of the 2019 World Youth Day, coming to you live from Panama.
I'm here in the studio in the States with Father Wade Menezes, and we're going to be kicking this off. The Pope is arriving today on Sydney Harbor.
At last, we're in Paris, France. France is the home of such saints as St. Louis, St. Joan of Arc, St. Louis de Montfort, and St. Therese of Lisieux.
The youth atmosphere, okay, because you see, the music, I can't hear it, but obviously...
This is St. Peter's, by the way.
Yeah, there's obviously a relevance of the music towards the kids.
It's not a big kumbaya, Jesus loves you festival. The Pope has a very serious message. I mean, what do you gather? What would you say to the message that the Pope has for the young people today?
Pope Benedict, as did John Paul II of blessed memory, wants to give this message that if you're confused, if you're doubtful, if you are uncertain about the meaning of life, about your own personal life, about the meaning of humankind, look to the teachings of our beautiful Catholic faith to see exactly the message of Christ lived even today in the modern world, and dare I say transmitted throughout the modern world, thanks to the likes of EWTN.
What would you say to somebody out there? You say, well, these kind of events, kids show up because they're out of school, or because they can basically have a Catholic party, and, it's kind of like those going for the March for Life. They'd say the same thing. Well, the kids all get on the bus, they don't really want to be there. How do you respond to that in both situations? Like
Sure,
that?
and certainly in both cases, that's probably the case for some, but then you look at the stories, there have been many conversions that have taken place at both. We heard that at the March for Life and also at World Youth Day. There are conversions, there are young people that discover their vocation, they're calling from God. And so you look at the fruit, and that when many share like what they've experienced, especially encountering Christ. And the big thing about World Youth Day, and this is another, sometimes it's been a criticism, is that you kind of look at the Pope as like a rock star. People are focusing around him. That's not the point. That's not why John Paul II started these. It's to point others to Christ.
A great look back there at some of the highlights from EWTN's coverage of World Youth Day throughout the years. And by the way, you get bonus points if you recognized and noticed a young Cardinal Timothy Dolan when he was Father Dolan. And just to remind you, if you're tuning in, we're conscious that people are tuning in all over the world. This is EWTN's coverage of World Youth Day 2023, coming to you live from the Portuguese capital of Lisbon. We are awaiting the beginning of the opening Mass, which should be happening in the next 10 minutes or so. We'll bring you that live here and in full on EWTN, and we'll be back with you after that with some more discussion as well. And of course, we're here all throughout the week with coverage of everything that's happening. The Holy Father will arrive tomorrow morning, and we'll cover that live as well. From your experience, we mentioned a moment ago, Father Mark, that organizing something like this is not just a huge logistical challenge for the whole city, but also for the Catholic Church in that country, because they're very involved in the planning stages, the logistics, everything.
Yeah, it couldn't happen without the volunteers. There's well over 20,000 volunteers, and without the help of the parishes, and oftentimes parishes and homes are opened up for the pilgrims to stay in. So when the bishop marshals all those forces of the diocese, you can see what the Catholic Church can do, and it's definitely a challenge. Some do it better than others,
He's a diplomat, this man here. He's a politician. But it's interesting because we came here a few weeks ago for EWTN News, and we interviewed some of the kind of key players from the Catholic Church in Portugal, but also the state and the government here. And, when they announced it was coming, there was some pushback because of the cost. It's something like 150 million euros, which in dollars would be a bit more to pull this off. But as the bishop told me in an interview, these things, they're expensive to get the staging, to get the resources, the toilets, the accommodation. To do it right, you've got to spend the money.
Right. And yeah, God provides. I mean, I know there has been struggles over the years. I remember Toronto had a struggle, but in the end it worked out, and generous people come forward and help.
And actually, it's interesting when you look at the finances. It costs $150 to host something like World Youth Day, but the professionals reckon that they will make back for the city around 500 million.
Right.
I mean, that's not what it's about, but just it makes economic sense for the host city as well.
Right. And I was reading something about the history too, that I think it was like in 1985, the UN had wanted to dedicate a year to youth. John Paul II heard that. He wanted to do it. I mean, he worked with youth throughout his priesthood and everything. So he called the youth to Rome in 1986. 300,000 people showed up, right? So then he said, okay, we're going to go international, and the first one was in Buenos Aires. It's just been getting bigger.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, one of the key people who has been working here for the last 2 years, remember this World Youth Day was delayed a year because of the pandemic, is the Archbishop of Lisbon. His name is Bishop Americo Aguiar, soon to be a cardinal as well, announced by Pope Francis recently. And a few months ago, we came to Lisbon, and I asked him what his hopes and dreams were for this Youth Day and how he felt that it was getting so close.
Estamos a 90 dias hoje.
When you think of how close World Youth Day is, it's like a defibrillator. You feel a shock at the heart when you think of how many days are left. But we are really looking forward to welcoming young people from all over the world for a meeting with Pope Francis. But above all, we are excited about them meeting with the living Christ. That is why we are very much looking forward to the arrival of the big day.
In your meetings with Pope Francis, what has he expressed to you for his vision and hope and desire for World Youth Day here in Lisbon?
Since the last World Youth Day, the world has lived through a pandemic, through an economic crisis, through a war, and so on. So the Pope really longs for people to experience the culture of encounter. It's important for us to encourage young people to be there for each other, to care for each other, to love each other, to be better people. It doesn't matter if I'm black or white, from the north or from the south. If we have different sensitivities, if we like different sports, different politics, I'm left, I'm right. No. We must recognize this as wealth. And knowing this as a wealth, we're going to build a world that is different. And the journey in Lisbon can help do just that. A chance to build a new future. This could be the profound result of World Youth Day here in Lisbon.
And that was our interview with Archbishop Aguiar, soon-to-be Cardinal, who was saying that World Youth Day is for everybody, no matter where you're from, your political beliefs or whatever. He said, you're Catholic, you're welcome. This event is for you.
Right. There's a lot of teaching that goes on here. A lot of evangelization. I know, like I was in Toronto, I went with the young people to the days in the diocese, and we'd have a bishop give the catechesis. And it's powerful. The shepherd of the diocese, he's good at public speaking usually. He can teach. And it's great to see the sheep come together with the shepherd. It's powerful.
Now, viewers might have noticed behind us on the shot, you can see there's a sea of white. These are all the priests who will be celebrating. Who is celebrating the Mass today, Father?
Yes, it's Cardinal Manuel Clementi.
Okay.
He's something of he studied history, he's written about evangelization and things, so I'm sure it's going to be a powerful address.
Isn't this incredible to see just the sheer amount of priests that are here to celebrate the Mass as well?
Hey, kudos to those priests. They're not, some of them aren't, young spring chickens, so they're with their groups, they're with their people, and I give them a lot of credit.
So the opening Mass is due to start in the next few minutes. Some people today were asking me, is it Pope Francis who's celebrating it? No, Pope Francis arrives tomorrow. The Holy Father will land tomorrow morning at the airport here in Lisbon, and we'll cover that live here on EWTN. So don't forget to go to EWTN.com/WYD to get your local listing of what time it's on your TV in your area. Eleanora, I know we've been working around the clock getting ready for these broadcasts, but as a young person who is strong in their faith, what are you hoping to get personally from World Youth Day this year?
what I think about.
No, what you want to feel or what you want to take away with it.
Oh, in events like that, it's impossible to live without something important, of course. And maybe it's important right now to learn to stay together in the same place in an international atmosphere. I think.
And to know that you're connected with so many young people, because Father Mark, we know, you look at the statistics in any country, my home country of Ireland, in the United States, in Italy, problems with anxiety with young people. There's so many worries. Remember what has changed in the world since the last World Youth Day. We've had a pandemic that, who could have predicted that global pandemic? We have the war in Ukraine. We have had an economic crisis. When we were in South Sudan with the Holy Father, they're facing a famine because of drought as well. So the problems just seem incredible since just the last World Youth Day. And a lot of these young people are carrying those problems on their shoulders.
Yeah, and even in the developed world, in the West, there's depression, anxiety, and real struggles, addiction of all kinds. So I think the word's encounter, right? That they can go to the adoration, they can go confess, they can just spend time with their priest or a mentor, on this pilgrimage. They can break away from the routine, and it can open us up to a new experience of God, is what we all need. So, and it's just like face-to-face. I mean, we're all buried on our screens. Right now, you're talking to people of different cultures from different countries. It really fosters a real human experience, interaction.
And it was amazing when we showed the clip earlier today of the young people from all over the world. The group from Singapore, and that's not a quick journey, who come all the way from Singapore. And I said, how are you feeling? Tired? They said, yes. I said, are you happy? They said, yes. Because the first thing we did was we went to adoration the minute we got here. And they just felt that burst of energy. Yeah. But you feed off that energy and the spirit from people when you see them. And actually, just 20 minutes before we came on air, we were in a coffee shop, me and some of the crew, and I saw a young volunteer sitting on her own. And you see a lot of them in groups. So when I saw her on her own, I said, oh, I wonder, is she here on her own, or did she break away from a group? And I went over, I said, hello. She said, hello. She came all the way from Mexico. And I said, who are you here with? What group? And she said, there are lots of Mexican groups, but I came here on my own. All the way from Mexico, and she was loving it so far. But as you said, you can follow it on EWTN, you can follow it on your phone. But for young people, it's so important to be face-to-face, to see the Holy Father, in the same location.
And for me personally, one thing I love is learning about the faith in that country, the faith that was expressed in the culture. This is like one of the oldest cities in the world, and just to go into the cathedral, to go to St. Anthony's Church, the saints of that country, to learn about St. Jacinta, it's powerful to see, their expressions of faith.
And Father Mark, when you have been to so many World Youth Days, and the euphoria of the first one and seeing the crowds is maybe not as strong, but what is it that you still take from it personally when you come to a World Youth Day, as a young man?
Yeah, I was surprised too. Just when you're around the young people, they got an energy and a vitality. It gets me out of my lethargy, my heaviness, and I find, some people might be. We talked to some seminarians the other day, and I asked them, what would you tell a young man considering the priesthood? He said, don't be afraid. We talk ourselves out of doing things, out of leaving our own land to go to a land of promise and things. And, young people oftentimes just have that freedom. I need some of that freedom. I need to be converted. And, just how can you not see them and experience something like that? It's impossible.
And Father, especially today when the world tells a lot of young people, a religious life is not of worth, or you should be aiming for the flashy, high-stakes career, or the biggest house, you know what I mean?
Right.
That there's so much noise coming in. That's why it's so important on social media, what ChurchPOP is doing. It's getting the message through to them that that you can have a very fulfilled and beautiful life, a very peaceful life, as a religious.
And they always have like the patron saints of World Youth Day. I mean, I was touched, as I said, about St. Jacinta. I mean, this 9-year-old girl, struck by her courage, her willingness to suffer something for sinners. I mean, she had a vision of hell. Lucia said it affected her more than the others. And she just wanted to offer that for sinners. So come to World Youth Day, you make these reflections. You hear people preach about them, talk about them. how could it not affect us? You know?
Eleanor, from walking around in the crowd, we just have a minute or two left until we cross over for the beginning of the opening Mass here at World Youth Day. And if you just joined us again, we're conscious people are tuning in for the Mass. You're very welcome. This is EWTN's live coverage of World Youth Day coming to you from Lisbon in Portugal. When you've walked around the streets, what has it been like, Eleanor, very quickly?
Oh, I saw a very colorful city in these days. And so I think that could be a very great World Youth Day.
You've loved the color and the atmosphere so far. We'll be back with you again. Yes, and I've been told now that we're ready to cross over now for the main opening Mass of World Youth Day. We'll be back after that for reflections.